Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fourth meeting of the Musicians In, where each week we look at one aspect of the music industry and do a deep dive with the experts in the biz. In the coming weeks, we'll have specials on music schools and teaching, being a hired gun or session musician, and of course, guitars. But let's talk about tonight's episode. When I started this thing a mere 3 weeks ago, a friend of mine asked which guests were on my wish list. Well, believe it or not, they're all here tonight. So I guess I should start another list. So please welcome Matt from the Guitar Speak podcast, Stevie from the Gig Life podcast, co-host of the super fun, awesome Happy Time Pedal Show, and accompanying podcast, Gabor. And finally, by no means leastly, the man who clocks up more live stream hours than the 24-hour ABC News channel and host of the video cast Make Some Noise. Please welcome Doug de Jong. Hello, gentlemen. How are we all?
There you go, man.
Good, good. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And Lionel's here.
Hello.
How have we all been? Good?
Good. Oh, busy. I'm tired. Did 3 casts last night, back to back. So 3. But anyway, rock and roll. But thank you for having us. And great to see you all, sirs.
Yeah, likewise.
And everybody else, thanks for having us, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. For the second time, I feel really special.
Well, you and Adam Gorecki are now in competition for who win the car.
Oh, wow. There's a car. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we got returning champions. So
it's one of those things where we're going to have to get together and whoever can hold the car the longest wins it. Whoever can touch it the longest wins it.
I wouldn't do that. I'll just hide some keys somewhere around southeast Queensland.
Okay, cool.
Just give you a clue a week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We'll see how it goes.
It's a small area.
Actually, I feel naked without a mic. I got a new wireless one. SM57 wireless.
Oh. All right. That's cool.
No, I'm joking.
I've got a wireless too, but it is actually a wireless, Doug. So
yeah, ironic. This one's BYO. Yeah.
It's because my rig is so big. I need to take a wireless to do a rig rundown.
Yeah.
That's not a euphemism.
No euphemisms here. All right, so we're here to talk about podcasts, gentlemen, and that's what our guests are wanting to find out. So let's get straight into it and the inception of the idea. So maybe I'll kick off with who's first in the window? Gabor. I think you're seeing it in the same manner I am, in the same order. So
I think so. I'm center top center.
All right. If this was a band and we were all at the Snow, we'd be at Ski Rider in like a room with about 8 bunk beds.
Excellent.
I've done many of those gigs.
Done that, yeah.
I play trumpet at midnight,
God.
so I'm sorry. That's just I got to practice it at midnight every night.
All right, Gabor. So just tell us a little bit about where your idea came from for the YouTube channel and the podcast that you're doing now, and any sort of what were the biggest obstacles on getting it off the ground?
Okay, so we started as a YouTube channel, but there was always sort of the idea of having a podcast on the side. And I think originally the idea with the podcast was people kept telling us we talk too much in our videos. And we thought we'll do a podcast that goes along with the videos, and we're going to do one every week after we filmed our videos, or every second week. And we talk about the pedals we reviewed and the stuff we've reviewed. And that sort of then took on its own life after a while. And now it's still related, and we still talk about the stuff we do in the videos, but we talk about everything. We just recorded a podcast last night, and there was one part of it was talking about Spotify paying $100 million to Joe Rogan. So we talk about everything in it basically. But so the idea was just discussing and talking, having a place where we can talk about the stuff we reviewed without people telling us to shut up and just play the stupid pedals on the YouTube channel. The biggest obstacle was time for us. Both Alex and I, the other guy on the channel, and me, we're not not at the moment, sadly, but we are full-time working musos. And Alex runs a commercial recording studio as well. So the time factor was an issue, which meant eventually we went to fortnightly podcast instead of weekly. Yeah, and that's about it. That's me.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for that. And Stevie, you got the Gig Life podcast. Where did your idea come from, and what things did you have to overcome in the beginning to get it up off the ground?
The idea came from driving to and from gigs, listening to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts, and there's one particular one in the States that I listen to, and I kind of had the idea one day, or not. I kind of thought, well, nothing like this is really happening in Sydney. So, and my podcast is I basically talk to local and Australian wide and New Zealand musicians and producers and artists, and just have a chat and hang with them. So I just had this idea, and I bought this Zoom H4n Pro a couple of years ago, and it was just sitting there doing nothing. And this one podcast I was listening to, he did all his podcasts via this Zoom machine. So I thought, oh man, I think I'm gonna do the same thing. So I did a bit of research and looked around, and like I said, there wasn't anybody around doing something sort of similar to that. So I just reached out to a few friends and tested the water a little bit, and then people said they were keen to do it. So I just started asking people, and yeah, I just started doing it, man. Yeah, does that answer your question? As for what sort of things that I sort of come up against, I guess, like Gabor said, there was time as well. I kind of overcommitted myself in the first 2 or 3 months. Sort of booked too many interviews and just had this idea that I'd do 2 a week. Working a full-time job with 2 young kids as well. Yeah, I just overcommitted myself. So I guess if I had my way again, I probably wouldn't have done it like that. I would have chilled a bit, Yeah.
Yeah, because some of the podcasters that I've heard them talk about getting started is they wanted to get a month in the can, so they did. Sat there, they planned it, they recorded a month's worth of podcasts, so that if anything happened, like if they got sick or a family member or whatever and they had to go, they've got ones in the can to put up. So I always thought that was a really good idea from a start point.
Yeah, I wasn't that smart at the start. I never thought.
Oh man, none of us are. Don't worry.
I never thought ahead. I just did it, all guns blazing, and then I guess in hindsight, it was good to kind of bank them up. But yeah, I definitely wasn't sort of planning ahead too much. I just went ahead and did it, and just as it was happening, that's when I started sort of pulling back and making some proper plans and that kind of thing.
Well, before I move on, I just picked up on something. Maybe I'll start with Matt and we'll go along. But are you, now that there's availability of artists and producers and stuff at the moment because they're not out working, have you been booking and putting podcasts in the can for the upcoming time when, I think everybody's going to, when we go back, everyone's going to get smashed and maybe not have time. So are you planning ahead for that, Matt?
Yeah, I've found, the last few weeks, artists have been much more accessible to book, especially overseas artists when there's, when you're trying to deal with time differences between here and Europe or here in the States. So it's definitely been much easier. My day job is music teacher, high school music teacher. So I try and smash out a bunch of interviews during the school holidays. I still record during, any time I can. But yeah, so the last school holidays, remote school teaching had just kicked in. So I haven't really slowed down, but the holiday window, I used that to have a few in the can, which has been good. So I've got a few. Yeah, it's funny hearing what Stevie said. I was so excited when I had my first podcast ready. I just released it and then I had nothing for next week. So I had to scramble.
And how about you?
I just wanted to get it out there.
Yeah. Oh, I know the feeling. You know, we all. I think just that's the nature of creatives. You just kind of you just want to get started, and you don't. You just go. If I get the first one, and gives me confidence, and then I'll bang a few more out. You know.
Yeah.
Have you been putting them in the can, Stevie? Or
yeah, I have, but not in a way like you suggested. Like I would be putting them in the can anyway.
yeah.
The only difference, I guess, is most of my podcasts are 1-to-1, so I go out and meet the person, or they come to my studio, and so the adjustment for me has been doing them all from Zoom. So yeah, like Matt said, it's easier to kind of lock them down, and instead of having to kind of meet somewhere and make all that kind of work, we can do it via Zoom. But I still have I'm keeping the same sort of schedule as sort of one a week. I'm definitely not going to go back to 2 a week. Every now and then it might stretch out to 10 days or yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, awesome.
And Doug, you're sort of, you know, you kind of have been spawned from this whole virus, pun intended, into action and doing your video casting. Where did the idea of that come from? And is it something you were planning before this COVID thing, or was it just like, I'm stuck here now, I've got to do something?
Well, good question. Good question. So I've actually been running a YouTube channel called Doug Jong, and have something called Guitars and Gear Down Under. So I've been every time I go to the States, I meet someone cool like Tom Nordeck, Steve Vai's guitar tech. I'll have a chat with him and a rig rundown and get to play with all the toys and all the bells and whistles. But where it started, the live streaming right now, I think I had a viral video. I got to play in the Tom Morello band. Yeah, name drop. Cool. This actually happened. And I got all this attention from the internet, was just out of control. And then all of a sudden this virus hit. So I thought I better keep it up. But where it started, to be honest, I went to a masterclass and I got to hang out with Sterling Ball, Ernie Ball. He's the guy behind it. I mean, his father used to hang out with Leo Fender, who, you know, revolutionized guitar playing, you know, changed the world. There's one strat. Anyway, just name dropping again, but I got to meet someone cool that changed everything. His name was Miles Copeland. So you probably heard of a little band called The Police. Yeah. And Stuart Copeland, the drummer, Miles Copeland is his brother. And Miles Copeland is a marketing magnet. He just picked me out of the crowd, maybe because I had an accent, and this is in California. And he said, "Who are you and what the truck do you do?" And I thought he was funny, and he just started cranking up. And so I just said, "Hey, I'm Doug Jong, and you should know who I am." And I just inverted it. And anyway, it got really awkward. We started screaming at each other across the audience. And then he says, "I like you," and sit down. So I guess from that, it really made me I had a conversation with him, and it really made me think, well, 1st of January 2019, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, because even though people can see me play, people don't actually know me and all the other exploits that I'm involved with. So yes, I do. I mean, got like 4 endorsements and stuff, and this has all just happened too, but I understand where you're coming from. You've only seen me on the internet, like overkill in the last few weeks, but it has been, you know, unpacking and maybe, yeah, checking in with marketing managers of some stars per se, that I was like, man, I need to pull a finger out and catch up.
I had seen your YouTube videos before. Actually, when we met at Twin Towns, I went, right. And Google stalked you, and right on YouTube. So, you know,
it's funny how you guys are talking about putting things in the can, and I used to do that. But at the moment, as Rob, and we'll probably get back to it, I've been live streaming like out of control. Like this is probably my 11th one this week, and I'm not lying. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I thought you might just want to sit back and be a guest for a change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Matt, you know, you've got, well, one of my favorites, but it's kind of a tie between you and Stevie. Actually, it gets jostling for my listenership when I'm in the car. But how did the Guitar Speak podcast come about, and you know, what are some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for about 4 years. So probably about 5 years ago, I started really getting into podcasts and just loving them, just loving the content and the discussions. One thing I noticed when playing gigs, especially some of the function gigs, like the wedding scene, I'd play with some amazing musicians that I'd seen from, known from around the Sydney scene for years. I remember having one with Phil Scorgi on bass. And for me, man, that's the midday guy. So every set break, I'm just talking to him about stuff. And he was just a lovely guy. And I thought, man, it would be good to do this regularly. And I thought, I keep hitting my mic. So yeah, that was the inspiration, I guess, conversations with guitar players. And I was listening to some US guitar podcasts. I couldn't find any in Australia. In fact, sorry, there was one that I found. There might have been others, but there was one in Melbourne. There was a guy doing like fingerstyle and classical guitar. So I thought, man, I know some people. And by some people, I meant 3 people. So I contacted the 3 people. They're like, yeah, we'll come on your show. So it kind of snowballed from there. Hurdles wasn't terribly hard. A lot of musicians, we've got mics or we've got recording gear. So I had stuff ready to record. I found a platform to go through. I started with SoundCloud and sort of self-publishing, but within a few weeks I realized it'd be much more efficient to go through a third party. So I run all my stuff through Libsyn, which is the largest independent podcasting distribution. So that just made it easy. So I just upload stuff to there.
Great.
I must admit, 4 years ago, I didn't know, I knew what Skype was. I didn't even have a Skype account. So I was booking interviews with people overseas, and I thought, how am I going to talk to these people? How's my phone bill going to look?
You thought it first,
my own, yeah.
Well, that's a great
lack of knowledge.
That's a great segue, Matt, into our next topic, which is equipment. And I might stick with you there, seeing as though you brought it up. We do have a lot of gear. Some of us more than others, and you can do this thing with a minimum, and you can go, insane. I know some of the biggest podcasts in the world, like WTF. He's just going into for years he went into a crappy mixer with a dictaphone, basically. What would you sort of say would be the minimum requirements for someone who wanted to get into this?
Yeah, minimum a mic, obviously. Really interesting in these days with all the restrictions. I know so many people now buying USB mics for remote teaching and that kind of stuff. So not even musicians, and they're just whacking them in the USB and running something like Audacity, and getting really good results. So really, a USB mic, a decent laptop, and you're off and running. But yeah, the next step up would be an audio interface. Stevie could probably tell us more about the Procaster. That looks awesome. He lugged that out for our guitarist roundtable last year, and that was really cool. But yeah, just a basic USB. I've got a little digital field recorder, just 2 ends. If I'm doing something remotely, I'll take this. I've used that in my car at 2 a.m. a couple of times, talking to some folks in the States.
Let's go.
Well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And Matt just was bringing up your Rode mic there, Stevie. What have you got any gear tips for people that want to get into this?
Matt was talking about the Rode. I've got the Rode. It's called the Rodecaster Pro, and it's a fairly new piece of gear. You may have seen it. Just Google Rodecaster Pro and it'll come up. But basically, it's got 4 audio ins. It's got a USB channel. It's got a TRRS channel. It's got a Bluetooth channel, and it's also got 8 little push patch pads which you can program for different stings and stuff like that. But I haven't used that yet. But yeah, like Matt said, when we went out and did the guitarist roundtable, I took it out, and it's a fairly hefty bit of gear to take out, and lots of cables and leads and stuff. But it's great, man. It records to an SD card. The preamp if we're getting a little bit technical, the preamps are really, really good. It's got really good onboard processing. Like it's got compressor and a gate and de-esser and that kind of stuff. So you don't have to do that stuff in post production. So it's really cool. I've got for my studio, I've got two Rode Procaster mics. So that's those. And when I go out on field, I like I said, I take my little Zoom, and I've got two small Rode pod mics, they're called, and I plug them in. And the results are really, really good. Like, yeah, I'm happy with my setups. It's cool.
Yeah, Rode have been instrumental in pushing the tech forward. I know they got the little wireless clip-on nows and things that go into hot shoe connectors for cameras, and amazing. Great Australian company.
But I had to sell drums to buy it. Like I said, I was doing a lot of podcasts, well, all my podcasts on the Zoom with no microphones, just using the XY mics. And I went to my mate's place and I interviewed him, and he's a DJ, and he had the Rodecaster, and he had, two nice microphones. And as soon as I put the cans on and started talking, I went, oh man, I got to do this. So he told me about the Rodecaster Pro, and I ended up selling a vintage Brady snare drum, which I'd had for years, which I was never going to sell, but I hadn't played it in years. So it was just a case of selling that gear to buy gear that I was actually going to use. So I'm happy with that setup.
And for people that don't know, Stevie's a drummer, and I don't think you should have a room full of guitar players without a drummer being present. So
how do I get myself in these situations, Matt?
Dude, honestly, every guitarist needs a drummer.
I got my Strat there. That's my old 60s reissue Mexican. It goes good.
Awesome. Rock.
That's my dad.
Yeah, man.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Gabor, you're sort of your next level. So we're gonna go.
Well, not really. No, I mean, this is for a long time. That's what we were using.
The Zoom,
which I think is every good podcaster should have a Zoom product of some sort. For ages we were just using that, or at Alex's. I mean, Alex runs a commercial studio, so we would be sitting at his place recording it there. Or lately, actually, we've been using StreamYard. So I'm sitting right here doing exactly the same thing, and Alex is at home, and this is how we've been recording them the last, 6 months or so. Again, through time issues that we never really have that much time. Usually we spend a whole day doing the videos, and then I need to go and quite often pick up my kids from school and stuff like that. So we do podcasts now remote. But yeah, I mean, I still use it a lot. I think these things are great for remote. You take it with you. Those XY mics that you clip on the top, they're really good, and the sound quality is great. And then if you sort of know a little bit about post-production, you can usually make it sound really good anyway, by whacking some compression on it and stuff and EQing it a bit. And, but yeah, that's basically, I don't know if it's next level, but that's sort of what we've been, that's what I'm just using. This is a Lewitt condenser mic that I'm using, and just going into my interface. And
yeah, I sort of meant that you've got the video element, so there's a lot more sort of camera, HD cameras and stuff.
We are very, I've become a massive camera nerd, and lenses in particular. I've become a massive lens nerd.
That's cool.
I spend probably just as much money as I do on all this crap behind me on on this sort of stuff, lenses and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we are primarily the YouTube channel. I mean, the podcast, like I said, is sort of an offspring, but it seems to be getting all right numbers, and we quite enjoy it, and people seem to like it. So, and I think I get a huge kick still out of. We do this thing on our podcast where we always say, while you're listening to this podcast, take a photo of whatever it is you're looking at. You don't have to be in the photo, but just if you're sitting on a bus, or if you I don't know, at home, take a photo of whatever it is you're looking at while you're listening to the podcast. And we get photos from people in Japan and in South Africa and in God, all over the world. And it's such a, I get such a kick out of that. There's like, just a dark street and someone says, I'm walking home from work listening to your podcast in the Czech Republic. And it's like, that's how cool is that? I get a kick out of that sort of stuff.
That's so great. Doug, you got some?
Yeah. So when I was doing gear reviews, and I was going to ask some of you guys too. So when I'm in my studio here, I've got the sound room next door. So I have like a room mic for the audio, and I've since worked out how to plug it into the camera. This when I do the YouTube thing, but for playing, I recorded here on another Mac over here. So obviously, I have to do all the syncing in post. But I'm very interested to see if you guys actually do it on the fly, because the beauty of live streaming is everything's live. There's zero editing. So I'm just wondering if you guys do when making noise with instruments. What do you do? They sync it in post?
Well, we personally we don't do that many live streams, but so when we do our videos, we have usually a shotgun mic recording our voice. And then Alex has got his amps and the speakers are in a different room, so we record that. And then he mixes the so he basically does automation. He takes out the room mic when the guitar's playing and vice versa. And then I sync it up to the we usually have only 2, sometimes 3 cameras, and then I sync it up later in Final Cut and do that. So he takes care of the audio side, I take care of the video side. Yeah.
Well, in answer to Rob's question, for my live casting, I've just been using the Mac mic straight off the laptop. Okay. But I have been talking to Rob. I've got some new tech to test on the weekend. So
because I was looking at ways of running OBS into StreamYard, and the amount of coding that's involved and little plugins. It's just for that 5 or 10% improvement. It's a hell of a lot of work. And compromising your operating system as well with these plugins is not my idea of fun. So for now, we're doing this on StreamYard, and I think they do a great job. I
think StreamYard's great. We've been using it because you don't have to go live. So we've been using it when we talked to people in not long ago. We did an interview with a guy in England, and we could see each other and we always try to get everyone to record at their end. So, because most people that we talk to are either in the podcast world or usually YouTube world. Okay. And if they can record the audio on their side, we just chat via StreamYard, and then they send me an MP3 of the audio, and then I stick it together in Logic.
Well, that's another great segue, because how's the learning curve and problem solving? How many of you guys are backing up to a second device, or how's that been? I might start with you, Matt. Are you backing up to a second device, and have you had any horror stories with that?
Horror stories, yes. 1 or 2. Okay, 2.
Maybe 3.
Every 2 years. Every 2 years. I usually most of the time I'll record into the field recorder, digital ins, and then dump it onto. I'm using Adobe Audition for my DAW at the moment. So there's always 2. Yep. Horror stories. Once I forgot to press record. Oh, just once. It's my nightmare, and it was a nightmare when that happened.
I've done that. I've done that too. Yeah.
Who else has done that? Has anyone else done that? No, it's been Gabor. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I live stream.
Oh, yes.
All I need to know is if it's broadcasting, and I don't have to worry about anything else.
Is this live? Are we on?
It is live.
But most of my notes, I scribble them on my A4 pad, and I always write, press record now. So all good.
All right. Good. Video cue. Yeah, wow.
That's a good tip. How about you, Stevie?
Yep. And this has got to do with the Rodecaster too, because it's fairly new. It's had some firmware updates since then, which has, ironed out a few of the early issues. But the first problem I had was when we did a bass players roundtable at my house, and I had it set up, and I had the mics out and all this sort of stuff, and I had guys coming and going because they had gigs during the day, and so someone would come in and record their hour or whatever, and then leave, and somebody else would, so it was a little bit like that. It was a really, really good day, and that night I sat down and tried to pull all the stuff from the SD card off the Rodecaster, and the first 40 minutes was missing. And I think you had Bobby Poulton on the show not long ago.
Yeah, Bobby's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and Bobby, he was the guy that was here for the first hour, and then he left. So 40 minutes of him is gone. So there was an issue with the SD card. So since then, what I do now is I've never had any issues with the Zoom, either be it just recording from the X1 mics, or I plug a couple of mics. I've never had any issues that way. It's just been this Rodecaster. So when I have my Rodecaster now with the Zoom recordings that I'm doing, I record the Zoom via the Zoom subscription that I got. I record from the USB from my Rodecaster to Logic, and I also record to the Rodecaster. And I did an interview with a guy last week, and the Rodecaster failed again for the first 40 minutes, but I've got it on my Mac. So, and also the Zoom recording as well. So, yeah. And like Matt said with the pad, like I've got like this little note thing that pops up on my screen, and I've got all my notes, and they're usually about sort of 18 size Arial. Then I've got record Rodecaster Pro, record Logic, record Zoom, and like 60 just on my page, So I go 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's go. So yeah, it wasn't a good feeling having.
Well, that button on the Rodecaster, I was watching a YouTube thing on it last night, and the record button on the Rodecaster is awesome. Like, it's about this big. Hard to miss it.
Very obvious.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec. There it is there.
Yeah. Great. So I am here. Press me.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So we've covered quite a bit already, but let's talk about getting our content online. So we've talked about how good StreamYard is for all this, but maybe Stevie, you can pick up there with how you're getting the stuff online, who you're using to host it.
Yep. Like Matt said, Matt uses Libsyn. The first podcast hosting that I ever even looked at was Podbean. So I can't talk for any other hosting, but I don't know where sort of Podbean sits in the on the rankings of what's best hosting, but I upload all my audio to that. I write my show notes into that, and from there it sends it out to YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. I've just never had any issues with Podbean, so I can't really speak for anybody else or any other hosting. That's all I've ever tried. I haven't tried SoundCloud or did I say it goes to YouTube? Yeah, so it goes to YouTube, but it's only in audio form, so it just sends the generic photo that I upload into Podbean. But yeah,
great. And is that any sort of format? Are you doing? Is it WAV files, or MP3, or lossless FLAC, or any? Is it?
No, there was one podcast I started listening to early on, and I don't know if you guys have come across this when you're trying to download podcasts on Wi-Fi, or some podcasts that go over 100 megabytes in the iTunes app, Apple Podcast app. They won't let you download them until you're with Wi-Fi, unless you switch it off. So straight away for me, I'm like, I don't want to make my podcast any bigger than 100 meg. Yeah, so I bounced down to 96 kbss, whatever it is. So I think the biggest file I've had from maybe a 3-hour podcast was like 80 megabytes. And the sound quality is great, man. You know, it's cool. For a podcast, it's great. Yeah.
We tried.
And how about you, Gabor?
We tried a few different. We did same as Stevie. Podbean always, and that's the only one I've ever used.
Yeah.
And we've tried a few different bit rates and stuff, and just to hear the difference. And I could not hear the difference to me personally. And I think it gets compressed so much anyway when you go to when you upload anything.
To be honest,
So,
I've found when I've bounced down to 96, you know, it sounds pretty good in Logic for me, and then I hear my podcast back through Podbean, sounds better.
Yeah, a lot of times it does. Yeah.
You know, so I've got these settings now for all my podcasts, and I don't touch them because, you know, I know if I fiddle with it, it's not going to sound as well to my ears anyway. You know,
it is cool that you can work all that out, because I've done that with the live streaming to Facebook. It's just finding out where Facebook won't touch it. You know, where it won't compress the video, won't compress the audio, just give it exactly what it wants, and then it doesn't mess with it. And that's been, you know, that's been a godsend. How about you, Matt? What platforms have you been using, and how you been getting it up there?
Yeah, so Libsyn, as we said, it seems to do pretty much the same thing Podbean does. So it gets it out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think they were the first distributors to get Spotify on board. So yeah, all that stuff goes to YouTube as audio only as well. I don't know about Stevie. I don't get many listens on YouTube, of course.
No.
The pitch is pretty boring after a while.
Yeah, it is.
It's just another point, though. It's another point for people to go, oh, there's a podcast, and they might, they might check it out.
I think I've had maybe there's been like probably one podcast that's been up on YouTube that's maybe had 30 views. You know, but I mean, I don't go into the analytics of YouTube at all, because who knows? Like Matt said, you can only look at a photo for so long. For my podcasts they range from an hour to 2.5 hours. I mean, how long can you just look at a picture? you know.
Yeah, I think because
have it in your cans and walk around and drive your car or whatever. You know.
I think because there's YouTube Music now, people don't have to have the phone open to listen anymore. So you could probably just listen to your podcast with your phone in your pocket.
Because if you locked your phone, YouTube used to just turn off. So so now with the subscription YouTube Music, I think it is, it stays playing in the background. So it might be just a future thing where you pick up things as time goes on and people move to that with the subscription. Yeah, I don't want anybody paying for my podcast, so I'll stay away.
Does Google AdWords? It probably helps there too for people to find it, just because it's on YouTube. Then it's a trusted site that you're being hosted on. So I'm sure it all helps.
Yeah, sure.
I've actually been
comments too.
Yeah,
I get good comments from the bots. They go, "Oh, this was a great video, great video content. Can we collaborate?
Can we be friends?
Yeah.
Sure.
Can you be my friend? Yeah." Yeah, well, I was going to say that I've just been investigating something called Anchor. Have you guys heard of Anchor before?
Yeah.
No.
So just with my live streams, I've been just going back and just editing like 20-minute power sessions. Having said that, it's a lot of work, really listening to everything. But yeah, just using Anchor and get that up there and having a podcast, having another stream of the same information. I should probably stop playing with the peg, but anyway, should get back my wireless microphone. But so have you guys used there's one. It's a real studio if you don't have a peg. There you go.
That's my Batman pen.
Anchor. Have you guys used Anchor before?
No, we haven't. No.
Okay. There's a mobile phone one. Yeah. Okay, cool.
No. Heard of it though. It's like, is that the free one?
Check it out.
I think it is. Yes. I haven't paid any money for it, so yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So once it's up there, once you've got your podcast up there, how are you letting people know that it's there? So Doug, we might start with you, but once your live streams, how are you getting the word out? And let's even go back to your guitar series on YouTube. How were you? Was it just organic, or what were you paying for it? How were you getting it out there?
Yeah, I haven't actually paid for any promotions, but what I do know about marketing is there's something called an S curve. So when something starts out, it trends up, then you have a flat spot, and all of a sudden it goes up again, right? So anything that has demand. So I guess what I learned from that is that whatever you put out, you maybe need to make it sure it's pretty good, because you don't know when something's going to drop viral. And I learned this lesson, as I said, in January when I had this guitar playing thing. All my YouTube things all of a sudden started getting all these hits out of nowhere, and I didn't really tell anyone who put it out there. But I guess probably to answer that question, through platforms like this, meeting other people, other content creators, they talk about it, people watch it, something happens. So to get it out there, just rinse, recycle, repeat. Just keep doing be true to what you're doing, playing and making video. Actually, so all the Sonic stuff, I had like nearly 20,000 hits on my Spotify from a video. Like, how does that work? So crazy. But and I guess maybe just being consistent. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
And has it turned into any dollars? Have you managed to monetize anything from that?
Good question. No, I have thought about that, but because I'm a musical director by day, so I actually do music all day, every day, and run bands, and as you know, rock star, and sing on when I'm not live streaming, I'm playing music or solving tech. So that's in the background. But I think first and foremost is to build a brand. 101. Like think of Coca-Cola, think of it, McDonald's, whatever. They build a brand. I hung out with a guy called Fluff. I'm not sure if you know him, a YouTuber, and Henning. I'm actually doing a track for Henning to go to Germany soon. I've got to sort it out. But those guys, they think bigger. Instead of thinking about dollars for me, they think bigger picture. Zoom out. How can you help? How can you agree and amplify and start a movement? So I guess hanging around dudes that, way above where I'm at now, and just looking back and saying, I asked them some questions, exactly what you're saying. How do you get it out? How do you get it out? And I guess probably consistent theme is, like any business, before you convert it to a dollar, you got to have a reputation, meaning brand, right? So I hope, exactly. Did I answer your question?
You did. So Gabor, maybe I'll move on to you. How is it? How have you built that pedal show of yours into what it is today, and what avenues did you take sort of early on was it organic, or were you sharing it everywhere you could, or were you paying for advertising?
No, we haven't paid for any advertising. The worst part to me, the part that I dislike the most about this whole thing, is the social media side. I can't stand it. I can't stand the, sitting there making little pictures and thumbnails and all that crap. That's a bit I can't stand at all. But Doug was just saying Henning. Yeah, Henning has been a really big help. So I had the chance to go and hang out at his place last year. And
at HP 42.
42 Guest Street, yeah. So I went there and which was a bit surreal being there, because I've been a kind of a fanboy.
I've seen you on that. I've seen you in those videos. Sorry.
Yeah. So we went there. Myself and Rick Hollis, another guy from the Gold Coast. We went there amongst a whole bunch of other people, and Henning's been great. I mean, he's a lot of people have interesting opinions of him, but he's super helpful guy, and he's been helping us out a lot in whether it's getting us in contact with brands, or getting us helping us out with behind the scenes stuff. But I mean, so for us, it was basically with the channel, we thought it was a fun thing for myself and Alex, because we were sort of hanging out playing with pedals anyway, and it was, I think I mentioned it on the last Musicians In when I was talking. It was, I think, his girlfriend's idea, Alex's girlfriend's idea. She said, well, if you guys are hanging out doing this stuff anyway, fiddling with, knobs on guitar pedals and giggling, you should film it and put it up on YouTube. And we started doing it. It very quickly gained traction. And then we had people get in touch with us wanting to give us gear. And I mean, that's every musician's wet dream, basically, is, take gear, have it. And it kind of snowballed into now the insanity of a new video every second day, which that's my stupid brain. But every 2 days we've got a video coming out. We've got a podcast every 2 weeks. One coming tomorrow morning. So every Australian time, 6 a.m. every second day, there's either a new video or a podcast coming out. But yeah, I hate the promotion side of things. I really, really, really dislike it. I mean, this sort of stuff is fantastic, sitting and chatting to other people. I love doing this sort of stuff. And out of 42 Gear Street, I think the biggest thing that came out of it was meeting all these other YouTubers and how awesome they all were, and what a lovely community it all was. And meeting people like, for example, one of our biggest influences from the word go was a podcast called 60 Cycle Hum, which is quite a big podcast based in San Diego in America. Yeah. And they've become friends of ours now, and we were hanging out, and it's such a cool thing, they're lovely, lovely people. And it's just everyone's sort of helping each other out. That's sort of been the best way of promoting ourselves. But both Alex and I are not big. We don't like talking ourselves up. we're not into that usually, and we're not. And yeah, like I said, I'm the idiot who said let's do a video every second day, and we've been doing it for almost 2 years now. Wow. And which is hard work, and yeah, oh yeah, well there, and yeah, the promoting bit and the thumbnails and the social media is the bit I really don't like. I like it the least out of the whole thing.
And how about you, Matt? Have you discovered any avenues of getting building the popularity of the Guitar Speak podcast?
I don't think it's a silver bullet. I think, as you guys know, any overnight success story takes several years. So
yeah,
just like Doug says, just trying to just present stuff that's good and that you're proud of, whatever level that is, whatever that means for you. But so I've just tried to do that. But in terms of getting the word up, just Instagram and Facebook and that sort of thing, and then word of mouth through sometimes other podcasters and stuff like that. I do some writing, which gets the name out. I'm not sure how much that connects to things. And when I'm playing, cover gigs, I'm just throwing my Guitar Speak podcast pics out, and the Blue Rinse folks at the RSL to come home and they're listening and
writing it down.
Well, I'm going to have a follow-up question on that, but I'll just bring you in, Stevie, and how you're getting the word of your podcast out there at the moment.
I did try paid promotions and stuff through Facebook and Instagram early on. Didn't find it made that much difference. I find my Gig Life podcast Facebook page very ineffective, because I think those things are, in my opinion, they're sort of built. They want you to pay to promote your post, and however the algorithms are set, they just don't allow my posts to go to the people that I want it to go to, So I do post a lot to Instagram, and I find posting to my own Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, I tend to get a lot more response from that. Apart from that, that's all I do. I've got a little schedule that I go to every time I release episode. So then I, post to Instagram, post to Instagram stories, post to my Facebook page, which I just copy and post to the Gig Life podcast Facebook page as well, just because it's there. And then I'll do a post to Twitter, and that's basically it. And then I maybe 2 or 3 days later, I'll maybe share from Spotify or something to Instagram, and that's about it. And then I just sort of let it run its course. But the trick is trying to find the right day and time to do those posts as well, I don't think there's an answer to that one.
No, it's interesting.
They're changing their algorithms or whatever all the time.
Constantly changing algorithms.
That's they just want to,
It's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I got something
ahead,
to add to
Doug.
that. When you go, well, I was just going to say what Steve was saying there. When is a good time? And I have looked at some of the stats. And being a nerd, you spend a lot of time looking at the screen and all the graphs. But at the moment, maybe next week will be a different picture. But everyone's actually doing nothing. So that's what really influenced me. Was Rob asked me earlier is what made me pull the finger out is like, well, what is the audience doing? Like, you've got a captive audience. So if you keep pumping the content out, something's going to stick. But I understand what you're saying. I'm a fan of London Real. I don't know if you guys heard of that podcast, but I mean, it's not a music one at all, but it's really good. And he actually has behind the scenes about how he puts it together and what day of the week it should go to air. But I guess at the moment, what influenced me is like every day is a good day. Hyundai, I should work. No, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I only know from a band perspective because I would promote Facebook for every gig that the 70s show does. And
Wow.
so I would constantly monitoring the analytics of that and the reach. And yeah, it's as simple as a photo is too busy and its algorithm won't allow it through because it wants to just see a simple image, bang, no, less than 30% text, like all of that stuff. And it can be very, very tricky. But in this time, with the amount of people online, I haven't paid for anything. The organic reach has been, amazing at the moment. But there's definitely, if you get it right, it just means that extra cream on top. You do get.
Did your paid advertising work well?
Oh yeah, for the band for sure.
So
being able to,
Sorry,
go.
you go.
Being able to target within 25 kilometers of a venue every person who's into a specific thing, like guitar, drums, 70s, whatever. Going out, dinner, date night, singles, if they're on Meetup, if they're on WhatsApp, like being able to target specific people, then you're not wasting the money. Because if you just go, oh yeah, I just want to target everyone between 18 and 65 plus in Mount Druitt, you're not going to pull them to a gig. So if you can target 2,000 people who would potentially come to your gig and convert 200 of those, then you're getting value for money because you're not wasting the money on that 18 to 40-year-olds that won't come and see a 70s show anyway. So it's kind of learning how to do that. In my hotel background, I got all the Facebook marketing training there. So
yeah, right.
See, I find a lot of times with that sort of stuff, it works really well. But as soon as you try to get people to go somewhere that's a different website to Facebook, the algorithms don't like it. So as soon as you add a link saying, check out my YouTube stuff, Facebook algorithms don't want that to happen because they want the people to stay on Facebook. They don't want you to go to a different website. So that's what a lot of that with promoting things like podcasts and promoting things like YouTube channels. I think even if you're paying for it, Facebook doesn't particularly like it. If you know what I mean. So they don't want you to leave. It's like on YouTube as well. I mean, when you monetize your YouTube channel, you get different rates depending on how long people stay on YouTube, because Google wants people to stay. The longer people stay on YouTube, the more ads they're exposed to. So they want your viewing time is rewarded by higher ad rates. So it's the same. They just don't want you to leave the platform you're on.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, Doug. Just while I think of this, have you thought about possibly streaming your YouTube episodes live into Facebook via OBS?
We've been talking about that, but it's the live stream thing. That our problem is that our biggest audience is in America, really, in Europe, and our biggest peak time for when most people watch our videos is between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. And
that's when I'm watching.
And
me too.
And it's just not feasible to do that. And otherwise, it's just not a big enough market in Australia. And we've done a couple of live streams and we try to do them early in the morning. Alex is not an early morning person. I have 2 kids, so I'm up at 5 every morning, regardless of, if I come home at 2 in the morning from a gig, I'm still up at 5 in the morning. So, I'm happy to do it, but, like 8 a.m., the latest 8, 9 a.m., which is sort of around 11 p.m. midnight in Europe. If we do it later, there's almost no point because we lose a huge chunk of our audience. But I mean, we are talking. We want to do some more live streams, but we just haven't had the chance because I've been busier than ever before with 2 kids at home, homeschooling them. Between my wife and me, we have no spare time.
Well, there's a question for you there, Gabor. How much time does it take to put together the videos that come out every 2 days?
From Scott. Hey, Scott. Scott was actually going to be a guest on our podcast at some stage, and he will be still, but it just hasn't happened because we were going to go down to see him in the studio. And the amount of time I put into this, as opposed to the money I make out of it, is I'm an idiot, really. Basically, just to give you an idea, so for example, this week, right, I spent just about every day in here editing videos or filming videos. On Tuesday, we always film. We try to every Tuesday when it's socially distantly, acceptable. We try to get together. I try to go over to Alex's place and we do a sort of proper videos there. But I've been doing more and more videos from here as well. But I literally spend every day from, I don't know, whenever school starts, 9 a.m., let's say, till about 3, 4 in the afternoon. I've been in here editing videos, filming videos, trying to, work out how pedals work. Sometimes we get stuff that's quite intricate, and there's a lot of behind the scenes time to sit there and work out how to, some of this, for example, these Chase Bliss pedals that we reviewed, they're not the kind of pedals you just plug in and wing it, which we do a lot of those videos too. A lot of the stuff we do, I think it came out yesterday. We did it, the new tube screamer. It's 4 knobs. It's not that, difficult. We plug it in, we wing it. First time we play it, we shoot a video and we do it. But other videos, you spend a week preparing, learning how to use the stupid thing, and so I reckon for me, from when we film to when we finish, I'd say it's almost, I could do, maybe if I'm really pushing it, I could do 2 videos a day maximum, maybe one good, 2 rushed. So it's a lot of time for the return.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Never sit down and work out your hours and your hourly rate because that's depressing. Totally depressing. So I got a question. I got a question now for Matt and Stevie. You guys being predominantly like guest-based podcasters, how do you go about approaching the guest? Where does the idea come from, and what's the process behind that? And I might start with you, Stevie.
When I first started the Gig Life podcast, or when I was planning it, I just wrote a list. A lot of those people came from people that I would see online, or my friends, or friends of friends. And I just started contacting those people at the start, and those first sort of six to 8 months, most of the people didn't reply, or so I would just I'd find a way to find somebody else, and then sort of over time, those people would get back to me, So then we'd kind of make that interview happen. But I don't know how I go about the guests. It's at a point now where people are starting to come to me as well, ask me, which is really cool. A little bit less work, and because what's really difficult, and I think one of your questions too, Rob, was some of the hard parts about doing this. For me, it's like the run around when you're trying to get a guest to come on the show and they say they're going to, but then they don't, or they don't respond, and you send them some dates. So it's kind of cool now to have the odd person sort of asked to come on the show, which is really cool. But yeah, I don't think my process has sort of changed too much. I just keep adding to the list. And if people don't sort of reply, I kind of bump them down, or just if they don't reply the 10 times I asked them, the 10 different times, they're off the list. You know what I mean?
Because it's funny, like all these entertainers and, they're these, extroverts on stage. When you want to get them in and talk to them, suddenly they're, private and shy. And
No,
it's like, I wouldn't know what to say.
It's not that though. It's the more they want to play games. I don't know if you've come across that, Matt. But yeah, I've certainly come across that. And I've got to a point now where I just sort of move them along, and I have people on the show that want to come on the show and want to talk, and so I hope that answers your question. Yeah,
it sure does. How about you, Matt? How do you go about getting the guests? And I just have a follow-up question to that one. You can maybe elaborate on later.
I just dropped out. I think I forgot to press record. I can't see Rob or Steve, but I assume the question has come to me now. Hey, Doug.
Hey, man, how are you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Got me now.
Pass on the stuff. Are we talking about how do we find guests? Is that still the question?
Yeah,
cool. Yeah. Thanks, Gabor and Doug, for having me.
Look for one now, Matt.
Matt, how do you go about finding guests?
That's an excellent question, Gabor. Thank you for asking me how I find guests. It's developed into two ways. So one way is I'll approach guests, I'll approach people, and that's how things kicked off. I had a list of people like Stevie, and some people said, I'll do this, which is cool. Another thing which has been happening for a couple of years now, which has been really cool. There's a few PR companies in Australia, and I'm on their I guess I'm on their list. So when there's tours or albums released that are then promoted through these particular companies, I'll get an email. Okay, we've got such and such from this band available to do some interviews. Do you want a spot? So some of the big names I've had on my show have happened that way. So that's cool. So the way I got into that racket was I think when Dweezil Zappa was touring Australia a couple of years ago, saw the ad, and luckily at the bottom of the ad was the presented by or the PR by. So I just know that company and said, hey, is Dweezil doing any interviews? And I wasn't expecting a reply, but yeah, for sure. So, so that's developed. So there's PR companies to help pull in some really big name guests, which I probably wouldn't have got by myself. And then, I think a crowd draws a crowd. So once you get a few guests that people have heard of, other people are more keen to get on or give you gear, Gabor, or whatever it is. I think,
So
hey, I'm going to jump out and I'm going to try and jump back in if I can see Rob and Stevie. Otherwise, I'll talk to Doug and Gabor soon.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I was going to say that, especially like name dropping artists coming on the show. I got to have an interview with Vernon Reid from Living Colour, and and I got to do that in the States. In California. How does that happen? It all happened because he actually knocked on my hotel room door, and I opened the door, and I was like, "What?" Like Vernon Reid just knocked on my, and anyway, that was cool. He actually let me have an interview with him and all that kind of stuff, and just so cool. So I guess I was actually relating to what Matt was saying and what Stevie was saying before that, and maybe even Rob, you're saying that there's some people, they have their show personality and then they have this different personality, but some cats are really, really super cool. So, and I think by actually being yourself in front of those people and being authentic draws more. And so then I got to interview other, I don't know, celebs, I guess I could say. Yeah. So it's been exciting. But anyway, Rob, what were you going to say?
I'm just going to expand on what you were just saying then and move into the next topic, which is, it's a boring thing unless you're like really into stats, and some of us are into stats and analytics and others aren't. But what are the things that you've seen? Any trends? Does it depend on who the guest is? does it depend on the time of day or the type of pedal? Like, are you using hashtags to capture people? You know, just put Klon next to everything, Gabor, or you know.
I wish it was that easy. I wish it.
I
was
might
that
start
easy.
with you, Doug, because you just finished up there and led us into this question. So, what
that's a
are
good-
you seeing? What trends are you seeing?
I think you need to be ahead. Well, how do you really be ahead of the trend? You need just to be across all social media platforms. You know, I just got into TikTok, and I thought, you know, if you asked me like 2 weeks ago, it'd be ridiculous. But when I went and had a look at the numbers,
Can you show me one of the dances? Can you do one of the
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I had to go around and get my sister to help me do some dancing moves, and but it's, you know, it's quite funny because the amount of traction I got from acting like an idiot with my guitar was way more than actually trying to be serious with my guitar, you know. So
Right.
but yeah, having said that, is just to be across the platforms. And at the end of the day, if you're an artist right now, you need to be across these things, because those TikTok people who are like between 10 and 15 right now, where are they going to be in 5 years' time? As a teenager, because I'm being a high school music teacher too, this is the most influential time right now.
Yeah.
So all of us being teenagers before, we know what our favorite bands were when we were growing up. They influenced how we play now. So it's like, wow, get those stats around. It's like, hey, I got to be there. That's where I got to be at. So to answer your question, Rob, I tried to play the Google game and look at Google AdWords and maybe actually, you know, do research, as they say, you know, go and see what's happening next door, you know, see what they're tracking, and maybe do, as you all know, there was a couple of Instagram videos, people playing guitar, they thought they were faking it or whatever, and just jump on the bandwagon. Yeah, jump on the bandwagon. And it's, but I guess maybe go-to creators like Rick Beato and Signal Studios I follow, and there's another Adam Neely I follow in New York. And I've got to meet these people from going to NAMM and all that kind of thing. So I guess to answer your question, Rob, is getting to know who's at the front, and maybe at the moment not copying them, but just being aware of the same content. And then, I don't know, you just have to, I think there's also an element of luck. You know, how do you get a viral video? And that was my next question to maybe to everyone is, has anyone had something go amazingly well? Yeah. Did I answer your question, Rob?
Yeah. And we can just follow that around. Doug's question to Matt.
I'll find my TikTok.
Nothing viral. It's been a slow burn. When I started, I remember getting someone who I saw that, Doug. I saw that the other day.
Yeah, I was scared. Good on you.
Okay, that's another thing I gotta write down to do. Okay, acquisition TikTok. I'm learning a lot here. This is fantastic.
Oh, no, hey,
My
did you get that? I turned it up to 11. That was my thing. See 11 spinal tap down the bottom there. Turn it up to 11.
Okay.
That's too cerebral for me.
Anyway, rock and roll.
Well played.
Sorry.
No, all good. When sometimes when I've got a guest, which I think when I started, I thought, oh, this famous guitar player my whole show will explode, and my numbers did not explode. They just kept slowly climbing along. And it was a good lesson, hey, because I was quite disappointed. It was my fifth or I can't remember which number episode, so I don't want anyone tracking back. But it was one of my early ones.
5. Okay, guitar speak.
It was when I had Stevie on. I thought this is going to go crazy.
Well, let's just go through some of the names that you've had. You've had Michael Dolce, obviously. Yeah. I know Michael from years ago when he was playing in cover bands around Southwest Sydney, and Michael Fix and Brett Kingman and Peter Northcote, Bob Spencer, Randall Waller, Andy Timmons, Brett Garsed, Troy Casadale, Dweezil Zappa, Jack Jones, Gilby Clark, Zach Wilde, Albert Lee, Dave Leslie, Steve. Seriously, he had half of Living Colour on.
Yeah,
you know?
Awesome.
Yeah, true.
So if you haven't heard Matt's podcast, get amongst it because there's something there for everyone. There's even a Gary Moore special you got to check out too.
Awesome.
And Ryan Roxy, man, that was great, Matt. I love that one.
Oh, yeah, that's the latest one. I haven't listened yet.
Yeah, fantastic. Loved it. What a cool dude. And your your questions were awesome. Good stuff.
You're very kind. You're very kind. So, but yeah, nothing viral. Just slowly plodding along.
And how
It's
about
the
you,
numbers-
Stevie? Like let's name some of the people that Stevie's had on. Another good friend of mine, I don't want to be a name dropper, but David Schleichman, he's just the loveliest guy ever. Terapi Richmond, who I'm lucky enough to have played a few gigs with.
Cool.
Victor Rounds. Both Matt and Stevie got to partake in some of Mark Malouf's sourdough not too long ago. I'm very jealous. Very jealous in that.
And the wine was good too.
Very good.
A guy who I've mixed, Declan Kelly, Ben Rogers, Jackie Barnes is the latest episode. And Cav Tabley was last week.
Yep.
Another great singer. Oh man, the list is Gordon Rittmeister, Daryl Beaton, Darren Ferrugia, who was everybody's favorite drummer in Hey Hey It's Saturday, and the lovely Carmen Smith. But it's just Jack Housden. How did he wear shoes when you saw him?
Man, he was dressed to the tens, man.
He's coolest cat, man. He's Australia's Gary Clark Jr.
He's so cool. Yeah. Really, really
But have
cool.
you seen any trends, Stevie, in your time doing this?
I'm a little bit like Matt. There's been certain guests on the show where you kind of think, okay, I'm going to get this guest on the show and they're going to take it to that next level. It doesn't work like that for some reason. I don't know why. I've stopped trying to figure it out because, it's just a few more beers I'll have trying to work it out. There's the one guest I've had on the show that's almost doubled the amount of views and downloads than anybody else was Gordon Rittmeister.
Hi, Jenny. We'll give you attention.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny. It's Jenny.
Jenny follows
From
me.
the block.
She's from the
Okay,
States.
cool.
From the States.
Cool. But going back to trends, I don't look at any other sort of analytics apart from what Podbean give me. What I have noticed, and I think there's a question a little bit later on, Rob, where you ask about the effect that COVID has had. For my podcast, it's had quite a negative effect. Quite clear, quite clearly. I don't know if it's because the musicians that used to listen to my gigs are not listening to the podcast while driving to their gig or driving home. Or it's the fact that the name of my podcast has the word gig in it and they don't have gigs. So they're upset that they don't have a gig, so they're not going to listen to something that says gig. I don't know. I'm just
I'll definitely I'll back you up there, Stevie, because I was listening to one audio book a week, maybe a dozen, 2 dozen podcasts a week, and pretty much since this thing, because I would drive 1,000 kilometers a week to gigs. Wow. So that's a lot of time in the car, and that's a lot of podcasts. And apart from the main ones that I've been listening to, all the ones on the periphery, I've kind of haven't had time for. So, obviously your guys, I'm listening to, still checking in with you. And, I can't listen to Mark Maron because his girlfriend just died and I can't listen to the latest. It's too sad. But, Bill Burr and comedy ones just to kind of make you feel good in the morning or whatever. But there is that trend I've been noticing. It's dropping off. People are really looking, I guess it's the visual thing that everybody's into right now. So,
So I was just going to say that, from the podcasting thing, because no one's driving at the moment. So, having a less demand because podcasting just being audio only is only doing when you're driving. But next week, all those stats will probably change. So from the little thing that I looked into is that all the visual stuff is actually, that's where I got the most traction from. But anyway, that was my 2 cents.
And how about you, Gabor? Have you seen?
Yeah, just in saying that though, I'm not changing I'm not going to change my
model
Yeah, model. Yes, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing the way that I'm doing it, and yeah, cool.
Yeah, man, it's great. You know, I reckon it's all going to go back, and people that are followed, and you know, you're always going to be left behind. I saw something the other day that said, and whoever was asked where you'll be in 5 years, no one got the answer right. Like, what was it? If everyone in 2015 was asked where you're going to be in 5 years, they all got it wrong. You know, just crazy.
Except
and how about you?
One guy with the aluminium hat, but
the boy in the bubble. And have you seen any trends, Gabor, from this lockdown?
Yeah, well, I have to say I'm one of the guilty parties who I haven't listened to any of my podcasts that I usually listen to when I drive to and from gigs, because I'm not driving to and from gigs. I usually have. I usually do, 3, 4, sometimes 5 gigs a week, and that's a lot of podcasts to listen to, and I haven't really listened to any of them lately. But I found with our podcast, it's been down a little bit, but I mean, we're not a huge podcast as it is. One thing I found on YouTube, it seems, and I don't know if it's an algorithm thing or I don't know exactly what it is, but since the whole COVID thing, our newer videos seem to not get many views, but our older videos seem to get a lot of views. And I'm not sure what the go is. So we've gone up because I don't look at stats that much, but you look at them every once in a while, and you get these sort of monthly on YouTube. Everything is usually 28 days. It looks at the last 28 days, and our overall views have gone up by like 20% or so. Wow. But our new videos that we've released in that last 28 days, they get barely any views, or not many views. I don't know why, but a lot of old videos seem to get a lot of traction and the new videos don't, which I don't quite understand.
I'm wondering if YouTube is now sorting by popularity. You know, like they'll do an update, and I know every time Facebook does some sort of update, it just automatically tags 10 people as always show first, and I have to unclick them. That there's always some update where YouTube will probably just go, oh, we're going to sort you by popularity this month, you know? So
it's
maybe that's it.
There's I mean, this is a little bit behind the scene thing, but there is a Facebook group of a whole bunch of YouTubers where we all sort of chat and stuff, and it seems to be a fairly global thing that a lot of people, their views seem to be up, yet their current views, like the new views, seem to be down. And YouTube constantly changes algorithms, so there is. I've really noticed, and all of us have noticed, sort of mid to end last year, all of a sudden everyone's views dropped. And it all has to do with who YouTube recommends. Because I mean, that's a funny thing, especially on YouTube, even with some of the bigger channels. If you look at the statistics, with us, about 80 to 85% of our views are non-subscribers who come through either recommended videos or who came through an external link. So someone on Facebook saw it or someone else
shared it.
But like 80 to 85% are non-subscribers. So and then quite often you talk to people that are your subscribers who like what you do, and they go, oh, we haven't seen any videos of yours for ages. And you go, well, you actually physically have to click on that notification bell, because otherwise you don't even see it. They don't show you that we have a new video. So it's just, it's algorithms. They're funny.
Yeah, I know from a watcher's perspective, I only have to watch one video on one subject, and on the smart TV, the whole thing changes.
It's just
yeah. I'm like, I don't, I love watching the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, and then all of a sudden my whole feed is Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert. But then I'll watch one Rick Beato, and I've got all Rick Beato and Premier Guitar and all of those. You just can't, it's crazy. And it's different on the computer, and then it's different on the phone. And
yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
All right. I did that with celery juice. So mine looks like, vegetables all chopped up at the moment. True story.
Well, I think just finishing up on that subject is not so much following trends, but just always trying to improve. And when you see something that's successful, you try to copy or replicate that with every episode. So that's because that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're all just trying to get better at this thing. And to what end, I don't know, but just that that's what we're all trying to do all the time as musicians or people.
It's fun. It's funny though, you know, there'd be a video that we've done, for example, that gets a lot of views, that very quickly gets, 20, 30,000 views, and we go, oh, cool.
Wow.
Let's do that again. And then you do a similar thing and it gets 400 views, and you have no idea why. And it's actually funny, Henning again, and that was one of the things at 42 Gear Street. That was one of the great things about meeting all these other YouTubers. It's not just us, and we were all sort of sitting there going, none of us know why some videos do well and some videos don't. And a lot of times you put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into one video or one. I mean, this is videos because, just because that's sort of what the main thing we do. But you put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into that, and nothing comes out of it. And then you do a stupid thing with your phone that you just go, that's kind of dumb, and upload it, and all of a sudden that gets 100,000 views. And it's, why? 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 I don't get it. And we try to copy not what other people do, but what we do that's successful, and it doesn't repeat for some reason. I don't know. I don't understand it, and no one does, I think. So
yeah, and it's not just videos. It's, if you put an event on Facebook or a paid post, you'll try to, one will go, holy crap, 30,000 people reach and 1,000 people responded. And so you go, okay, well, I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with that one and replicate it. And then it gets 100 reach. And you're like, well, how am I supposed to have a business plan here when you keep moving the goalposts,
Yeah.
Because they want you to pay again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm paying for everything, Doug. So I'm paying for every gig to be promoted. So
that's amazing.
More.
yeah, it's part of the fee structure package that I give to venues, so they get a marketing component.
Yeah, yep.
So
wow, okay.
that means I can ask for a bigger fee than some other people because it's going to promote it. All right, 2 more questions, and we're going to wrap this up. From each of you, maybe an episode highlight or a guest highlight so far, and we might start with you, Matt.
That's hard. I saw this question. I am prepared for it. It's hard though, because these episodes are like our children. Don't make us choose, Rob. Come on, man.
Well, just think that all your children have a skill, and you can only take one to a desert island. So one can light fire, one can hunt, one can grow food, right? But you can only take one because they only have one skill.
All right. I really enjoyed the space. I enjoyed the conversations. That's the reward for me. That's what I dig about it. So, but having said that, it's every now and then I remind 15-year-old Matt who I'm talking to. So sometimes I'll have guests that I've just discovered in the last year or something, and I love that. I love it. But sometimes I'll talk to someone who really inspired me to play guitar when I was 15, 14, whatever. And that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. Just one example. I've got heaps of examples, but just one. I had Brett Garsed on from John
awesome.
Farnham's show, and I was talking to him about when Farnsey played at Expo '88. So I was 16 or 17. I was 16 there, and it was telecast on TV. Now I don't know how old you guys are, but if a gig was telecast on TV, it's a very big deal. So you'd turn down the sound on your TV, you'd turn up your FM radio, and you'd have it in hi-fi stereo.
Simulcast.
Anyway, it gets better. Brett Garson's playing. He looks like Rambo. He's playing for Farnsey. He's got a video camera on his guitar. Now, the kids today, they go, big deal. It's a GoPro. This is like a whopping big camera. But you can see you're looking up the fretboard, and he does the solo on, what is it, Let Me Out, which goes for about 3.5 hours, this solo. And just the camera, unbelievable. So people my age just go nuts for that. So for me to actually talk to him about it, and I got a lot of really great feedback from old blokes like me who remember it. But to talk to people that have had an impact, and just discuss their work. Not to be starstruck, but just to say, man, I love that. What was happening? What was it like having a 10-kilo camera on your guitar? Or tell me about the expo gig. That was amazing. And to share that, that's pretty cool. That's fun.
I love that episode because he gave me hope. He said, when you hit the wrong, I think he said something like when he hit the wrong note, he knew the right one was only one away or something.
It's always just one friend away, isn't it? That's
One friend away.
We learned to get past it quicker. It's not wrong if you're like a chromatic passing note or something. So that was great. How about you, Stevie? Some highlights so far?
Episode 1, that was cool because it was episode 1, and the roundtable episodes that we've done. So there's been a drummers, a bass players, and a guitarist. They've been great fun, and kind of like Matt said too, that the guests that I've had that have had an impact on my my career or my upbringing, and one of them was my high school drumming teacher, Lance Phillip, who's a drummer still in New Zealand now. So it was just fantastic to talk to him again, and we hadn't connected in 25 years or something like that. Darren Ferrugia was another one because I used to watch him when I was an up-and-coming drummer on Hey Hey It's Saturday in New Zealand. So it was just great. It was just so cool to talk to him, and I talked to him about that stuff and told him I was a fanboy.
I reckon anyone who watched Hey Hey was a fan of that band.
Yeah.
I know, they just
killer band. Yeah.
Oxford.
Gordon Rittmeister as well, because when when Idol first came out, I used to just watch the band. I used to just watch Gordy play, and I'm really lucky that I've had Gordy on the show. I've had Mark Costa on the show, was the bass player in the Idol band. I've had a couple of the singers on there. When we did the guitar roundtable, Chris Camzelis, it was great to talk to him too, seeing those guys. Yeah, just the and like Matt said too, they're all your little children, not little children, they're all your children, like they're all great. It's hard to kind of single them out, but those ones, the ones that they probably had the most impact on me, I think. Yeah.
Cool, man. And Doug, so far, like what have been some of your highlights between the streaming and the YouTube thing?
Okay, probably for me, shooting some snippets of video with Nuno Bertancourt, total fanboy. He said to me, he's Nuno fan. He says to me, "Oh my God, this crazy Aussie, where's my helmet? Going to wear a helmet around here." Him telling me how much he loved my playing just does not make sense. And what blew my mind.
Yeah,
What's that? Sorry,
just on the bottom of the screen, Wilbur White.
Wilbur White. He's actually met him at an airport. I didn't blow his horn though. But I think that the probably what was actually mind blowing is that he's an amazing person off camera, and so that in the hotel lobby that we're at, he'd sit down at this grand piano and just pull out all these like etudes and sonatas and stuff. And I was like, wow. But I think probably the biggest thing, even just recently this week, because I've done quite a few this week, is just meeting the people off air, just talking to them off air, even though we're not in the same room, but connecting with a drive. And this is a passion, the arts are at risk right now with this whole COVID situation. And just meeting people who even tonight, meeting all you guys in a similar way, pushing forward and not going to roll over and let it pass by the wayside, let the arts rot. So I guess, maybe meeting people with passion, and probably more so than ever, actually. This is probably my highlight.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're all being forced to adapt, aren't we? And probably put more of ourselves out there than we ever have. So, And how about you, Gabor? What's some highlights? I know you've spoken to some pedal builders and stuff over the years, but is there anything that sticks out for you?
Well, for me, some of the again, I mean, this is just going back to 42 Gear Street is and we had Henning on our podcast. Cause I've been a massive fan of his channel for a long time. 60 Cycle Hum, Ryan from 60 Cycle Hum. We listened to, Henning's YouTube channel, Ryan's podcast. I've been listening to for I don't know, like 4 or 5 years, however long they've been going for, since the early episodes, and meeting them and hanging out with them, and having him be in a video with me at 42 Gear Street, and on a couple of videos with me. That was pretty awesome. And having Henning in the videos too.
Awesome.
I mean, that's from that sort of perspective. That was a massive highlight. Sort of in a real life sort of thing, I had the chance to hang out and part of a tour with Leo Sayer, and meeting him. Awesome. Such an awesome dude, and hanging out with him and his band and stuff. They were amazing people. And to this day, I'm still friends with a lot of these guys, which is awesome. And we sort of incorporated that in some of our podcast and YouTube stuff. But I mean, highlights. It's hard to pick something in particular, but I mean, really, the 42 Gear Street thing for me, from that sort of point of view, was a massive highlight. And meeting
this is the highlight for me, just so you all know. This is my highlight.
And this, I mean, right. That's the thing. And do anything like this, it's so cool, to be able to do this stuff. And
thanks so much, Rob, for this. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Meeting like-minded people and stuff. I mean, how cool is this? This is.
I want to do it again, even if we don't live stream, we just Zoom or something.
Yeah, just turn it off and we keep chatting. That's good.
Yeah, man.
I'm sure we've got something else. I'm sure we've got other things in common. So yeah, we'll just do another theme.
But just quick, like I said before, just the guy sending us photos from South Africa, in a bus, listening to our podcast.
That's a good idea.
That's the coolest thing ever.
I know. With my live stream shows, people have been, they'll take a photo of their wine and then me on their smart TV playing in their living rooms, or like a screenshot of their phone. Oh, look, we're sitting out here, and the bush will be out there, and they'll have a beer with our living in the 70s stubby cooler sitting, the beer sitting in that, and I'll take a photo with someone else's phone of them watching it on their iPad or something. It's seriously cool, So 2 quick questions. Do any of you have anything on your wish list that you want to divulge? Like, this could be your opportunity to put the plea out there. Like, okay, please, Eddie Van Halen, come on the Guitar Speak podcast or something, Does anyone have anything they want to just put out there in the world and try and make it happen?
I want Spotify to offer me a deal like Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
You don't have to make it $100 million. I take $100 per episode, and I'll be exclusively in Spotify.
Hey, they will do that, but you have to cage fight Joe Rogan for it.
Oh, okay. Well, then no. I'm very cool. I have a very high center of gravity. I go down very easily.
Gabor, just on the Joe Rogan thing, have they disclosed how much that deal was for?
It says it looks like it's worth about $100 million.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, wow. And this is little bitch fest here. This is a company that says we don't have enough money to pay the artist streaming, yet we can pay a guy $100 million to do a podcast. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, that's
how they'll get it too. Spotify. They'll take a percentage of that tip button they've put on, that you can tip artists that they're going to put on Spotify, and they'll take that money, a percentage, and they'll pay it to Joe Rogan.
Well, I mean, like that, we talk about, the percentage of how much Spotify, how many people, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but the amount of people that are listening to the non-subscribed version to get the ads is more than what, the subscribers are paying. Yeah. So obviously Joe Rogan's going to come. He said that the podcast is always still going to be free for both the audio and the video. Yeah. So Spotify are not going to change that structure. They're still going to have those non-subscription ad-filled service. So, so Joe can get paid and Spotify can get paid more, and Joe brings all his people over to Spotify, and
So how are you guys? Because I skipped over that question. Is
I've got an answer for that question. Really quick.
Yeah, go.
Well, if I would really like to have Dan Pena on my podcast. I don't know if you guys know who he is. Maybe Google him, and he has this quote. He's not a muso at all, but he's very, very influential, and he really wants to come and help reshape Generation Snowflake. So the current generation, and he has this quote is my mantra at the moment, and this is an example of it. You know, show me your friends, and I will show you your future. And I've been really, been thinking about the time and energy you spend with the people, because that really dictates how creative and how much output I mean, Rob knows how many outputs I've been doing. Maybe you're the same, Rob, But anyway, that was just my call out there. Dan Pena, if you're listening, give me a call or an email.
All right. How about you, Matt? You got anyone in mind?
I don't know. There's people I respect, but you don't know if they're going to be fun to talk to, although everyone has been so far. So I'm assuming they will be.
Can I put my wish list in for your show?
Give me a wish, yeah.
I want Mark Lazard on there, because he's been very open lately. He's done Ash Grunwald, and he did another one the other night for 3.5 hours. So come on, Mark, get on the Guitar Speak podcast.
Oh man, it's funny you say that. The most requested Australian guitarists are Diesel, Mark Lazard, Ian Moss, and Chris Chaney. So I've put it out there. So I would love to talk to any of those guys for sure.
Cool. Awesome. And any pedals you want sent your way, Gabor, for
Oh, anything really. We're cheap. Just send stuff our way. No, I mean nothing. For example, STS effects. I never.
I'm endorsed by these guys in California. Here's a free plug.
Oh, cool.
They're cleaning up right now. So yeah, STS.
Did I mention I'm using a Lewitt LCT 440 microphone?
Yeah.
Get him in. That's actually
sponsored by Lionel.
Lionel, yeah. Well, there's someone for any podcast. Lionel Richie. That'll be the. No, I mean for us, I don't know.
sound tech.
Oh yeah,
all right.
Check. They're great.
You've got pedals too, Stevie? What?
I got everything, Matt. I got everything.
I can't pick any of mine up. You're not too far away.
For us, as long as people watch it, we're happy. I mean, we don't take ourselves very seriously. So as long as we, I mean, for us, the getting comments where people say we like what you do and we bought this because of you guys, that's to us the best thing. So we're living the dream. And you are great too, Jenny. My dream would be to have Jenny Portnoy on the show. That would be my dream.
Any relation to Mike?
I was just going to say that.
I already asked it. But she's a great guitar player.
Right.
Anyway, what's something you brought up, and I didn't get to this before, but it would be really interesting to get your answer. The whole donation and sponsorship thing, as far as it being, a lucrative endeavor that you're all a part of. Now, there's something, I don't know if you know Twitch, but there's this whole thing on Twitch where people donate money constantly. They have a virtual tip jar, and it's just gamers, and they're commentating, they're playing, whatever. And there's this culture amongst the Twitch community of donating money. And it's something that the music industry has been just absolutely terrible at. How do you guys deal with that? Have you seen any donations? Or I know you've had, Matt, you've had Dolce's guitar masterclasses sponsor a few episodes and a couple other things, but have you had any luck there?
No, not really. I had a Patreon page for a while. My main supporter was a good mate of mine, so it just felt a bit awkward. And if it went viral, maybe I'd feel less awkward. The other thing with that is it does bind you to putting out a certain amount of product at a certain amount of time. And one thing I love about podcasting independently is if I'm just flat out, I'll just put a couple of shows out this month. If I can't get around to editing something, so that I'm happy to present it, I'll just do it next week. So this is not life or death for me. I'll still buy food this week. It's maybe different for people when it's part of their income. So I haven't really chased that very hard. And when I've sponsored stuff, it's almost always been through a relationship. So yeah, the reward for me, it sounds cheesy, but it's just like I think Gabor was just saying, it's just people enjoying the work and the experience of it myself, and then sharing the conversations is really the fruit for me, really. But yeah, I'm happy to accept large piles of money. Yes.
How about you, Stevie?
I tried to get sponsorship early on. I approached companies and different people. One thing I've never gone the route I've never gone down through Podbean. If you pay the next tier of subscription, they if you meet the criteria, then they'll start throwing ads at you that you can put into your show. The last thing I ever want to do is put ads for stuff in my show that have absolutely no relevance to my show. So I'm not even touching that ever. Even
I wonder with podcast stuff, is it like with YouTube where it's a different ad depending on who listens to it, or is
not
it
quite sure. I'd never looked that far into it. That whole thing has just sort of turned me away. I don't want to. Obviously, if someone was to come to me with some big money, possibly, but I'm like, who knows? But, like I'm like Matt too. Like I don't make, I'm going to eat. Me and my family are going to eat this week, and it's got nothing to do with my podcast. What I have had that's worked for me is the donation thing. Probably 8 months ago, I put a link on my website, and I would start my podcast with, you've got the option if you want. Like I'll say, my podcast, it's free and it'll always be free. You're always going to get the same amount of content, but if you value it, you can donate, and anything that you donate goes back into the creation of the content. And through that, people have been really generous, and it's allowed me to pay for my Podbean subscription every year, pay for my website subscription, and some other little. And the last couple of donations that I got have allowed me to get that sort of second tier Zoom subscription, so I'm able to record for longer than 40 minutes and have more than 5 people or whatever on my Zoom account. So I haven't definitely haven't made a profit. Not really looking to. It's beside the point. But it's really cool and to have those supporters that give that donation. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, I just want that information out there for anybody that's sort of considering doing it as a career and thinking that there's money in it, So we just need to be clear. I know the first thing when I did a communications diploma was you did a research project on a career, and I was learning. I wanted to be a journalist, and I knew in the first week there was no money in it. So
yeah.
I was like, I got to find something else. I'll still do the diploma, but there's no way this is happening.
Yeah.
And how about
it's the long game too,
Yeah.
Unless you specifically go into it for a certain amount of time, like a season. I know there's some podcasts out there that are just exactly.
Awesome.
Hey, show me the dollars.
Show me the dollars. I don't mind. I sold my soul a long time ago. So that's.
I don't know if any of you listen to the Conan O'Brien podcast, but that guy has just a way of delivering the ads that is just above and beyond what anybody else is doing. And he just, he just said, if you want me to do your ads, I'll do it my way, not your way. So don't send me copy. I'm just and that's so great. Yeah. And we'll finish up, Gabor. How has it been for you as far as being able to, to at least get back a little bit of what you put in?
Well, yeah. So I mean, we the podcast, I don't think has brought us a cent yet. Really, I don't think. With the YouTube channel, we started as soon as we could. We started monetizing the podcast, the YouTube channel. So once you get 1,000 subscribers or more, you can monetize it, and then you can select how you want your ad structure to be. And that's why I asked, because on YouTube it's targeted advertising. So if Veronica Ebert watches my YouTube video, it'll be a different ad to if Doug watches it, because it targets. But there's not a huge amount of money in it, especially during COVID now. That's another thing we noticed. The revenue went down quite a bit, so less advertisers were willing to pay. So revenue went down a little bit. But we've done sponsored videos. We've done just recently we did one with DistroKid, which actually, if you go to our channel and you click on the link in one of our videos, you get 7% off your first year membership with DistroKid.
I just wanted to say, Rob, I've actually made money out of my iTunes and Spotify. So from all this visual stimulus that I put out there, I have put a PayPal account out. Some random person sent me $100. I probably should have seen who actually sent that. That was for some shredding thing. But to be honest, all the traction came through, another avenue I wasn't even thinking of, So I mean, still $19 is $19, but I'm just joking. But it was still, for 20,000 hits, I expected a bit more, but it is what it is. But that's what happened. That's what's happening right now. And hopefully, if you're listening, go on to Spotify, give me another click. So,
all right. So Veronica's got a question. If you're all in it for the love and not money, how are you filling the gap? Well, I'm filling the gap with JobKeeper. So there you go. How about you, Stevie?
I'm electrical fitter by trade. That's my full-time job.
Day job. And Matt, you're teaching?
Teaching, yeah. I'm playing gigs most weekends, but
No, you're not. Not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
No, you're not.
Breaking the law. Breaking the law.
I'm here tonight. This is where I am. Yeah. So it's not part of my income, I guess, to answer Veronica's question.
And
it's like my original project.
Yeah, so I teach music during the day, but usually shred lessons. So if you want some guitar lessons of some description. Yeah, I actually got I got students all over the world, actually, randomly in Germany, and they got a guy in Canada, got a guy in Switzerland. But that all helps. International exchange. So what's the story with the SG?
Yeah, that's Badger wants to know.
Well, I actually bought it when I was on tour in Japan. I thought, hey, I got to have that. And whilst in the shop in Japan, they put on Hotel California. I was like, you've got to be kidding, as if they would put on like Stairway to Heaven, and they did. So and then so I made a racket with it, and so I bought it. That's the story with it, all the way from Japan. And any of you guys know Sid Green? I have no idea who Sid Green is. Yeah,
I don't know Sid. But
thanks, Steve.
That's not Sid Green Iota. Sid Green drummer.
I'm not sure.
Sure. Anyway, all right. Final question, and this is a music related recommendation I like to finish up on. So it can be old or new, something borrowed, something blue. Wait, that's not it. That's a wedding thing. Sorry, too many weddings. Something may have slipped under the radar, and it could be a song, an album, an artist, podcast. And let's screw with everybody with OCD and go anti-clockwise. So Matt.
Okay. Sydney group, Harrison Tabua or Tabua Harrison. It's a duo. Joseph Tabua is going to be a guest on my show soon. Guitar player. Holly Harrison, great composer, drummer. They do this free impro drum electric guitar stuff, and it's cool, man. It's trippy. It gets heavy. It gets 20th century chaos. It's beautiful.
Awesome. How about you, Doug?
Well, may as well plug the CD, so check me out.
Why not?
So this is called Post-Traumatic Express. This is about the 5 stages of grief. Actually, did my honors in composition, so it's pretty deep. Steve Vai's producer actually mastered it, so check it out. Wow. It's instrumental guitar. But to be honest, I think when everything goes back, go and support your open mic, go and support your jam nights, go and support live music full stop, because it now needs support more than ever because you got to support the businesses that provide the opportunities for the musicians. So
absolutely.
There you go.
Stevie, recommendations.
This is Night Walker by Gino Vanelli. I don't know if you guys heard of that. Vinny Colaiuta plays drums on this, and he played on this album just after his Zappa stint, where he's at his choppiest, and so yeah, that just blows me away, and I've only just sort of rediscovered that CD I bought over with me from New Zealand back in 1994. So I've kind of dug that up, and I've been playing that in the car. Also, Doug's got a CD. Check that out and go to Spotify. Click on the Spotify.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
All right, Gabor, your turn in the hot seat, mate. What have you got for us?
I forgot what I said last time, but I've really lately been listening to more electronic music. So I've been really into a guy called Alessandro Cortini. I don't know if I mentioned it last time or not.
Yeah.
He's an Italian guy. He isn't part of the touring band of Nine Inch Nails, but he does sort of quite minimalist electronica stuff. I've been listening to his stuff quite a lot, which is really cool. Guitar playing wise, the only real sort of guitar hero I've been listening to lately is Annie Clark, St. Vincent. I love her stuff. I absolutely love her music. There'd be someone awesome on your podcast, Matt. Annie Clark.
True. Okay.
I think she's awesome. So that's
agree. Okay, I'll chase her up. And Diesel.
Diesel and Annie Clark. There you go.
Diesel was double.
Diesel was going to be my recommendation tonight because
I got some contacts there, Matt, for Diesel. I'll send them to you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Sweet as.
Yeah, Mr. Richie Vez. Love that man. Carmen's husband. My recommendation was actually going to be Diesel tonight because after I went back and listened to, well, I'm always listening to, but I think there's some albums that got missed in Solid State Rhyme. If you're into funky stuff and if you're into good songwriting and production, then Soul Lost Companion, go check that album out. It's probably his best as a songwriter.
Yes. Yeah. Amen.
Unbelievable. And if you want a cool podcast, and this is in honor of Stevie being here and being the only drummer, you can only find it on YouTube, but check out the interview on More Stories, Jay Moore's podcast with Matt Sorum. It's one of the best musician podcast interviews ever. I think he does one with David Lee Roth too, and it's that's what got me into podcasts. Those two.
Matt Sorum is the interviewer, is he?
No, he's the interviewee.
Oh, right. Okay. So does he talk about the Guns N' Roses days and the cocaine days?
Talks about everything, man. Cult, everything. And same with the David Lee Roth one. So it's called Jay Moore's a stand-up comic and actor, and he had More Stories is his podcast. So check that out. All right. I want to thank all my guests. Thanks to Gabor, Stevie, Matt, and Doug. And I'll be back next week with a couple of music schools. We'll be talking to how they got started and teachers and how they switched online. Until then, we'll see you next week. Cheers, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.